Welcome back. You're watching KTN News Desk. Let's continue with our coverage. And the National Dialogue Committee is today having a roundtable with the Treasury, State Department of Housing and the Ministry of Energy. Present to make submissions are Treasury CS Professor Njuguna Ndungu, Energy CS Davis Chirichiri, and Housing PS Charles Hinga. Let's now cross over live and listen in.
So CS, I'll leave you to clarify whether you indeed say that in this meeting. Before I go to the other questions, maybe you'll do that after I go to the other questions because I want to leave. Dr. Rugo, you asserted that 80% of Kenyans, if I heard you right, I was actually asking my colleague here of you whether it was 80 or 8%. 80% of Kenyans live in their own houses. I would be very keen to know where that data is from, because in my own constituency, probably 70% don't live in their own houses. Maybe Kikuyu is among the areas where poverty is quite high. They live in rented premises, not their own. Yeah. To my friend Dr. Rugo, you propose that we do away with some taxes and levies or reduce them altogether. In the same statement, you are also asking that we manage or reduce our fiscal deficit. And I would want to know where the balance between these two lie, because the two are contradicting positions. If you were to reduce on taxes and levies, then it has an implication on your revenues, and therefore has a direct implication on the fiscal deficit that CS was talking about. So I just want to know what is that optimal balance that you'd want us to have. CS Numo, Dr. Rugo spoke about rationalization of our state-owned enterprises, and I couldn't agree more. There's a lot of duplication in our state-owned enterprises, huge government resources going into state-owned enterprises. I would want to know whether the National Treasury and government has a program on a review of the state-owned enterprises, because these are some of the quick win areas that would have to rationalize those state-owned enterprises and save on the huge expenditure going into those state-owned enterprises. And I think that has a bearing to what you're talking about, a review of the tax regime in the country to ensure that, one, you do not push people, scare the market out of this country in terms of taxes, the tax regime. And you have alluded to the fact that there is work ongoing. Can this committee then take it from you that that work, as you assert, will or shall be completed before the next finance bill, or even earlier, before the next finance bill is mid next year? Could we have a special finance bill, probably earlier, to have that optimal tax regime that is responsive to the market and optimal in terms of revenue generation? Davis Chirchir. Sorry, before I go to Davis again. CS, you have talked about greasing efficiency in the fight against corruption. And this greasing efficiency, you have said, at least there is a solution in creating incentives for our public sector. And I couldn't agree with you more. That if you are able to increase the incentives to our public sector employees, then this need for greasing efficiency, corruption in government, may, probably if not eradicated, may be reduced. As good as also we need to work with our ethics and morals, because there are also people who are earning quite highly and they are still demanding to be greased to be efficient in public office. Certainly for debate. But you also spoke about the second element of corruption in government and failed systems, and you spoke about state capture. You are careful not to prescribe any solutions to state capture. What solutions would you then encourage us to prescribe to the corruption of state capture? Because that is what actually has bedeviled and gotten our economy to where it is today, in my view. And therefore, I would want to hear or benefit, this committee to benefit from your input in terms of what can we particularly recommend to deal with state capture as a form of corruption in our country. Lastly, Your Excellency and members, and you'll allow me to, you will take the answers for me because I need to run somewhere. Below says that G to G, and this to Davis, has had no effect on the exchange rate. Of course, I don't know, he did not adduce any evidence on as to how this have had no effect. I heard you say that it has had an effect of reducing the exchange free fall of the dollar from, I think, a high of 3% on average to an average of about 1%. I would also want to know whether that is based on any empirical evidence, and probably inform below if that is true. Again, does it mean because before G to G, the exchange rate to the dollar was probably about 130, 128 to 132 shillings. It's now at 156, 155, as below tells us. Is it that it is only fuel prices that inform the exchange rate, or are there other factors? Because from the presentation by Bill Carroll, one would be tempted to imagine that it is only fuel prices on G2G that influence our exchange rate fluctuation, which from where I sit as a student of Professor Ndungu, I know is not correct. There are other factors, and I believe Bilo is an accountant like me.
Right, and that's Kimani Ichung'wah, the chair of the National Dialogue Committee, today holding